Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and today, as every episode, I'm super excited about my guest. Lisa Dadd is the owner of Soul Sales. And Soul Sales is a really cool concept, and I really can't wait to get more into it as we bring Lisa on. But first, as always, I'm going to read her bio. So, Lisa is an international professional seasoned marketing and sales executive, business owner, integrative management consultant, trainer, and gifted speaker based in Ontario, Canada. Like Toronto is one of my favorite places. Lisa Dadd spent 15 years in the competitive industry of corporate healthcare, mastering strategic sales, marketing, and management skills from the world's largest pharmaceutical company. In addition to the success, climbing the corporate ladder offered was a deep sense her greatest potential was yet to be realized. With nearly a decade of independent consulting and intense training in leadership development and facilitation of social emotional learning programs, Lisa has uncovered an innate way to access that potential. Leveraging a diagnostic tool called Soul Language, Lisa now works with innovative leaders to integrate an awareness of who they are at their core into the way they do business. The success of her process is particularly related to her unique approach to sales training. She believes that selling is a critical communication skill for all of us to have, because whether we are selling a product, a service, or an idea, we all need to create buy-in. Soul Sales teaches the art of creating buy-in through the enrolling language of one's innate energy. Lisa attributes a master's degree in kinesiology and mostly her dog Leo for her playing your way to greatness, facilitation, and training style. She'll help you blur the line between work and play, and as you rediscover the significance of being the best version of you. Wow, this is going to be like such a cool interview. So without further ado, let's meet Lisa.
Hi, Iris. Thanks for having
me. No, thank you for being on. And that is so cool. I know that we spoke about, I don't know, a month ago, and we started talking about, the process that you use for sales. And you helped me realize, which was a good thing, that I'm really not a salesperson, which was like it was so awesome, because I have everybody telling me, oh man, you can sell anything and you can do this. And I've never felt that I was a salesperson. I always felt that I was more of a problem solver than a salesperson. So, and in speaking to you, that kind of, clarified what I thought all along. So, and it was good. You were like, I don't mean anything bad by it. And I didn't take it that way. I kind of needed to hear that. So let's talk about you and the soul language and your, sales and all of it.
all things.
All the things.
Well, first of all, let me tell you that I am a firm believer that nobody should have to be a salesperson, right? And I think that's the biggest problem that people have when they're thinking about doing sales, and that feeling that a lot of people say, oh, it's so icky and I don't want to be salesy. And my first thing is, you don't have to be a salesperson, and what I mean by that is a lot of people have an idea of what salespeople are. Mm-hmm. And normally it takes them back to a particular circumstance where they had a really pushy, awful sales experience.
Yeah. And so years ago, I was working for a company in Chicago, and this sales guy from the, it was the Chicago Tribune. No, which is the paper whichever paper is defunct now. It was a sales guy for that. This isn't why they went out of business, but, and he came into my office and he said, hey, I'm so-and-so from, the Sun-Times, from the Chicago Sun-Times. And, we would love to have your business. And I said, you know what? We're actually going to be opening a new property in 6 months. I said, so come back in 3 months and let's talk. He said, great. So he comes back the next week. And I'm like, Okay.
What calendar are you on?
So he said, hey, I was in the neighborhood. I know you said 3 months. I just wanted to pop in and say hey. And I said, that's nice. It's really good to see you. Come back in 3 months. He comes back the next week. And he did this for about, I think the next, like, it was a total of 5 weeks.
Wow.
So I told him, well, so the fourth week, I told my assistant, and I had like a glass office. I said, tell him I'm in Bermuda. And so she goes, Iris is in Bermuda. And he's like, I can see her. And she's like, dude, get the hint. Like he just went. So I said, let him in. And I said, if I see you here one more time, I'm calling your boss, because now this is harassment. I've asked you to, come back in 3 months. I said, you're about to lose the sale. Oh, I'm sorry. He freaking comes back the next week. I call his boss, and his boss is like, I'm so sorry. He's new, blah, blah, blah. I said, I honestly don't give a shit what he is. I asked him not to come. He's been here 5 weeks in a row. I said, the sale is done. So, the guy is like, oh my God, I'm really sorry. We don't want to lose the sale. He's promising me everything under the sun, full color page ad on the back on a Sunday. It's like a $10,000 ad. We're going to do this, that, and the other for like half price. I was like, okay. So didn't deal with the sales guy again. Long story short, they got the ad wrong and they printed it, and we ended up getting a free one. But after that, I looked at my assistant and I said, oh my God, if I ever turn it, like, that is the example of what not to do, because that is how you lose people. And I like vowed that if I ever got into sales, which, I did, I would never be that person. And I would never sell anybody that they didn't need. And if they said, come back in 3 months, I would come back in 3 months, not, 3 weeks or whatever. So, but I digress.
Yeah, well, I think, you're just bringing up a couple of big points here. And one of them is that everyone has a story like that. It may not be that story. And usually it has a common theme to it. Like the themes around all my sales situations that really irked me or really turned me off of sales, even though I'm in sales. It was always somebody assuming. They assumed what I needed. They assumed what I wanted. They wrongly assumed, I walk into a car dealership or to buy a new home, and I look young for my age. I'm wearing jeans and a ponytail, and so they assumed I couldn't purchase what was available. The pretty woman scene where she walks in and says, big mistake. And right. So I can look at and I could encourage everyone listening here too, is think about if you've got some preconceived ideas of what a salesperson is, and you think about the thread of bad, circumstances that you were in, there's probably a theme. Like that guy wasn't listening to you. You were super clear and he wasn't listening. So it's like, I'm never going to not listen to people. Where it's like, yes. They assumed what I needed and wanted. So for me, I never assume for people. I always want to understand what, and I always want them to tell me what they need and want. So it's sort of, if we can, instead of like shying away from sales and believing we have to be what that person was, instead just take the thread and go, I get it. Assuming is bad. Assuming doesn't work. And so since it triggered me so much, I get to never create that for someone.
Right. And that's what I think is super important in sales. And you're 100% right. When we have a bad experience, that's what we say we're never going to do. Same thing with management. What made me a good manager was I had so many shitty managers that I was like, I will never treat somebody like that. Right. So everything is from, stems from experiences that we've had.
We can take the good ones. I always like to take people when I'm doing trainings. I also ask them, what are some good ones? What is a circumstance where you were so grateful for a salesperson because they gave you an opportunity to buy something that really changed your life or just even made your day? It doesn't even have to change your life. It could just be, I love that. I can think about, I went shopping for clothes one time and I had a salesperson and all of a sudden I walked out of there and I had spent, it's embarrassing. I won't even tell you how much it was, a lot of money.
If you're like me, I can imagine.
And I don't like shopping, and I especially don't like shopping for clothes. And I left with an entire wardrobe. Let's just call it that, like shoes and purse and coats and all the things. But I loved the experience, and I would not have thought I was going to go into it with that. Just the way she went about it. And so I want to always say to people too, is that first of all, no one has to be a salesperson. My whole purpose with Soul Sales is to get people selling from inside their comfort zones, from their natural way of being. And so I don't want them to be like anybody else. And we can also learn about ourselves, what's important to us and what we value through those experiences. So I can know that woman, that was helping me that day, that she wasn't just listening to me. She saw things I didn't see, and she was offering options for me without being attached to me needing to buy them. I mean, there's lots of things that was going on in that circumstance that I can also take into my own sales process.
Right. See, and I love that. So tell me more about positive experiences, because I think everybody always, you're right. The first thing we thought about, or the first thing I thought about, was my negative experience. Right.
So let's play with this, because it's better when it's unique to you. And so I love doing this with people, is that instead of me just giving you a concept from mine, don't tell us the whole story, but think of an example or a time when actually you loved the salesperson or you had a great sales experience.
Oh, when I buy my car, I use the same guy.
Got it. Okay. Why do you use the same guy? What is it about him in particular that's different?
Oh, I trust him 100%. Okay. I mean, I know he's got to make money, right?
Yeah, but why do you trust him?
Because he's always done right by me. He's always gotten me the best deal.
Okay.
That I'm comfortable with. Like, I give him a number and he hits that number.
Got it. So already you're already paralleling it, right? The first guy, it's like, come back in 3 months. He comes back a week later. You're like, wait a second. I don't know how I could have been clearer. I mean, it was a specific time. It wasn't even vague, right? You said, come back later. You said 3 months. He didn't listen. And this guy's, well, I gave this guy a price and he actually got me the price that I wanted. And I trust him to get the best deal, right? So you're already starting to see the threads that are most valuable to you as a person.
Wow. Yes. Yes.
So if you ever go into a sales situation and you're thinking, wow, I don't want to be that sleazy, salesy, pushy kind of thing. You just think, oh, what do I value? Listening, trust. It's like, how can I listen to this person and demonstrate trust, that they can trust me? And when I anchor in that, you anchor in that before the person even says hello to you.
And the crazy thing about that is, if you speak to all of my clients, they will tell you that they work with me because they trust me. I listen to them, right? All of those things.
So you see how your values weave into your way of being. And so you can know always, anytime you're in that, like, oh, I don't know. It's like, that's fine. Just anchor. How can I create an environment of trust?
Wow. And I'm doing it. I'm not even realizing that I'm doing it.
Absolutely. And so this is what I want everyone to listening know. And trust may not be your word. So those of your listeners that are listening and saying, like for me, it was like assumptions. I don't like assumptions. I just don't like people assuming things and judgments, prejudging me. Don't judge me because I'm a woman. Don't judge me because of my age. Don't judge me because of whatever you want to judge people on. And so I don't like that. And so same thing. It's like, how do I open up a conversation of curiosity so that I don't slip into assumptions?
Right.
And so I ground in that. That's my thing.
Wow.
But see, you don't need to do that because your thing is trust, and that anchors you. And so it's not about you doing it the way I do it. It's about leveraging what you already have.
Right. And that's the key, because whenever I meet with somebody, the first thing that's on my mind is I want them to be comfortable. I want them to know that they could trust me, that I have their best interest at heart. Like, they all know, no matter who I'm working with, that I want them to succeed. That's my number one thing, right? Is I want them to succeed. And when you say, don't make assumptions, I ask so many questions.
Yeah.
That, I actually had a client say to me a couple of weeks ago, are we done with the questions? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, why? And I said, well, look, I said, I don't want to assume, right? If I know, like, I can think, and I didn't say assume, I can think I know what your pain points are.
Yeah. And
I even hate to use the word pain points.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
aspirations. So instead of triggering pain points, so language is very important to me. And when we shift the language, we shift the energy and we shift the intention. So if I want to trigger your pain points, which most people will talk about, discover your pain points, cure the pain points. I think of somebody, I have a bruise on my arm and someone keeps pushing it. And I'm like, ow, that doesn't feel good, right? I probably know what my pain points are and I don't need you rubbing them in. However, if you can activate my aspiration, it's a much better energy to be in. So you can identify, I want you to know, identify, and listen for pain points, but I want you to activate their aspirations.
Okay, so everybody listening to this, right, who is so used to having that, pain point experience, like, oh my God, I have a lack in this, I have a lack in this, rather than looking at what we're lacking in, like Lisa is saying, let's look at what we want to aspire to.
Absolutely.
And then that completely changes the message as well as the energy. And like just by you saying it, my energy's changed.
Absolutely. So give me a typical pain point from one of your typical clients. Can you give me one? Let's use specifics here for people.
Man, they are so varied.
Yeah, just give me one.
I'm trying to think. Kofi's probably laughing back there right now. Okay, well, I have one right now who is well, he obviously wants to bring more people in his doors.
Okay, perfect. So he's not getting enough leads. Let's just call it that for people. He's not enough opportunities.
It's retail.
Oh, it's retail. Okay, so not people walking in the door.
Correct.
So those are opportunities as well. There's not enough opportunities. If people aren't walking in the door, how can I have sales conversations with myself? Okay, so that's a pain point. People aren't coming in the door.
Right.
And so what's the aspiration? The aspiration is that there's a steady, organic flow of people coming in that I can have conversations with. And it's like, if that, what, and I want to know from the person, if there could be a steady, organic flow of people coming in, how would that shift your experience and day to day? How would that shift your stress level? How would that shift, you start to think of things. It's like someone saying, oh, I'm so stressed out because, well, look, the prices of everything has doubled since the pandemic, right? Everything seems to have doubled, but it seems like retailers can't double their prices because people won't pay them. So it's like their rent doubled, their utilities doubled. So now their stress is doubled. And if they don't have as many people coming in the door, all of a sudden, like on top of. And so with this guy, I would say, okay, so the aspiration is that you have a steady flow of loyal, dedicated customers coming in. Okay. And so, and how would that shift your day to day? How would that shift your month end? What would that look like? Right. And so that's where you start to activate the aspirations, but you want to hear from him what that is. You don't tell him, you don't say that would make you feel better at the end of the day when you go home to your wife. Well, you don't know that for sure. His message might be, is like, that means I can close on Friday so I can go golfing. Okay, great. Awesome. So let's get you golfing on Fridays. Right. So then all of a sudden, if I'm selling him a service, I'm not talking about, just feeling good at the end of the day. I'm talking about the ability to golf on Fridays because you can hire someone to work that shift for you because you'll have the money or something. So you get a little bit of an idea of what I mean by activating someone's aspiration.
Right. Wow. I like that a lot because that is not how we went in. Kofi, I hope you're taking notes back there. No, really, because, this business owner has been a friend of mine for a million years, and it's time to kind of refresh and, kind of get with
what's next level. What's next for them? And here's someone, if you've got someone who's been, them really well. So here's back to my assuming thing, right? So of course I'm going to go here because I don't like assuming, but you say, you know what, I've known you for a really long time. And I get that. I get the feeling. So you can state something for them. I get the feeling that it'd be really great if we use the Friday thing as an example. I get the feeling that you'd be really happy if you could just be golfing on Fridays instead of working a 5-day week. Am I right? Is that something that you would like? Like you don't assume it. You might wonder. I kind of wonder how your stress level would be if you only had to work 4 days.
Yeah.
So you can kind of put it out there for them as an aspiration, as a wondering, rather than, if you only worked 4 days, you'd have less stress and you could pay right? So that never feels good, right? So when we're in a sales situation and we start to, and that happens a lot of times with salespeople, is that they have all these features and benefits listed and they sort of dump all the features and benefits on you. I was trained that way. You have the feature and you sell the benefit. Mm-hmm. But it's like I'm selling a benefit without actually knowing if it's valuable to the person that I'm selling.
Exactly.
So what if instead I opened up the opportunity to hear them tell me what's valuable,
right?
And then align what I have with that value.
Okay. I mean, that makes tons of sense.
All right. It seems so simple in some ways. It's like, of course, that seems so obvious. And yet what ends up happening, especially, so all of those experienced people out there who've been selling their product for a really long time or their service for a really long time, the assumption thing can be accidental. It's sort of an accidental side effect of experience. I see this all the time. And so we see the problem, we know what the person needs, and so we jump to that. And sometimes the problem is that we've missed the bridge with the person understanding it and feeling it and seeing it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you're just too far ahead of them.
Yeah, no, that's 100% correct, because I think that we always go into these things with preconceived notions, right? We've known this person for a long time. We know how they're going to, react, or, we've seen this issue before, and we know how to solve the issue. So we're already in our heads solving the issue for them, and we don't even know if that's exactly what they're looking to do at this point, even though we know that it is, but they
may not be there.
Know that, right? They may not be there yet.
That's right.
And my biggest thing is, we meet you where you are.
Beautiful.
Right? Yeah. Because I don't want, and I'll never forget this. I was working, well, I have to be careful with this. This was like probably about 8 years ago when I first started the business. People were here and somebody wanted them there. And well, we have to push them there. And it's like, no, I've never been like that. If this is where you are, I'm going to meet you here. If this is where you want to be, we're going to get you there. But if this is where you are and you can only do this right now, and maybe I'm wrong in my thinking like this, but it's like, I'm going to meet you here, and we're going to do all the work to get you to be able to go here. And then I'm going to meet you here. And then we're going to do the work to get you here. And we're going to keep meeting you where you are, but we're going to raise, where you're at.
And the secret ingredient in there in terms of a sales situation. And I always say there's a sales situation, whether you're selling a service, a product, or an idea. So when you're needing to get engagement, buy-in, for something, so you've got someone you're trying to move. If it's a employee situation, it's like you're here and you got to get here, and we're going to help you get there. My question always is, what's the willingness and what's the value for them? Because unless you can tap into, first of all, the value for them, and then really understand the willingness, that's where you start to get buy-in, as you go on that level of willingness. What are they willing to do? What are they willing? So it's like, someone's telling you, hey, they need to be up here. It's like, well, what's their willingness to be up there?
Right.
Right. And when I'm managing people, it was the same thing too. They wanted me to prepare people for promotions. And then I would ask them, do you even want that? Well, I'm not sure. Okay, great. Well, we got to start there. You're not even bought into the value of having a promotion. Why am I pushing you for a promotion that you don't even want? That's right. Crazy. That's kind of crazy, right? So it's not really that different with a sale. So you're just selling someone on an idea. You're selling someone on taking an action. It's not always an action that someone's handing you a credit card for. To me, it's always a little bit of a conversation around value and willingness.
Right. Now, so we're going to segue, because, you just said when you were a manager. So how long were you with corporate, and what made you decide to leave corporate and do your own thing?
Yeah. So I was with corporate just shy of 15 years. And it was, I always say it was, this is what I say in my book, it was a split second decision, years in the making. It was years and years of feeling like I wasn't quite doing what I was meant to be doing and not having the ability to do it. And so I was always a little bit of a rule breaker and a rebel in some ways. It was always like, well, that doesn't make sense. If we can do it this way and it's more effective and it's better, I want to do it this way. I was always a little bit of that. I was never a yes person. I was kind of a no and kind of person, like what if instead? And so that served me very well in corporate. In 15 years, I kept getting promoted after promoted after promoted. But I hit a time in the organization where they were going through a lot of changes, a lot of downsizing, right sizing, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And each time they downsized and right sized, I got a promotion out of it. So it was actually serving my career in some ways, but I was getting less, and I was making more and more money and becoming less and less satisfied and happy with the work I was doing, the impact I was able to make, I just did it matter, and so I just hit a point where I felt like I was happy to make half as much money if I could be twice as happy. And then I came out into, owning my own business and decided I get to be, twice as happy and make twice as much money if I want.
Right.
At the time, it really was like, what is the point of this all? Climb this corporate ladder, and all of a sudden I realized the ladder's leaning on the wrong wall.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I stole that from one of my interviews in my book, by the way. I'm trying to remember who said that, but I completely agreed with that. It's like, I'm climbing this corporate ladder, but where's it leaning? Like, where's it going?
Well, I love that. So what's the name of your book?
It's called, do I have it here? I do. Finding Fabulous. I'm like, I don't even have a copy of it. Finding Fabulous, Paving the Path to Check and Passion. This really chronicles my journey, but I wrote this book while I was going through the journey. And so I interviewed dozens of other individuals who left professional and corporate careers in order to follow more meaning, more purpose, more joy in their life. And I purposely wanted to show other people's stories, not just my own, because I was also discovering the common threads between them. I also purposely chose sort of ordinary people who had done extraordinary choices, because I didn't want, we can all look at the Richard Bransons, Oprah Winfrey's, Bill Gates, and, there's lots of things we can learn about them. And there's so many things we can't, because they're in a different world than, those of us that live, in the everyday. And so, I interviewed a teacher who became a business coach, and I interviewed an architect who, I interviewed a cop who became a doctor. And because I wanted to know, how did he do that? And I loved his story, because people used to say to me, well, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids when I left corporate. And they used to say, oh, so easy for you. You don't have kids. I could never do it. And I wanted the book to relate to people, no matter what their stories were. And so I loved this story of this cop who was going through a divorce and was taking care of his young toddler. He was working full-time as a cop, went back to university full-time while he worked full-time, and had a toddler at home in order to get into medical school.
Wow.
And then I had a single mom of 4 kids who grew a successful business off of basically starting with welfare and then started her own business. So I wanted to say, like, look, it's not about your circumstance. It's about your willingness. There we go, back to willingness. What's your willingness to have what it is that you want? And so not everybody's situation is the same. And I'm not saying they're easy. I'm just saying that there has to be a willingness for what's at the end of it, no matter what you start with.
So do you miss corporate at all, or no?
Do I miss corporate? I miss aspects of it now, and I can say that. I wouldn't have said that years ago. I ran so hard and fast from it. I called myself a corporate dropout. I wasn't really dropout, it was runaway. What I would say is that I can now appreciate aspects of corporate, especially because I went from being in a really structured corporate environment, learning sales and marketing and management. And then I went into transformational business space, where I met all these amazing, heart-centered, mission-driven individuals that had no business background. And all of a sudden they're saying, I hate sales, it's awful. And I'm like, okay, it's going to, damage what I do to people. I can't ask them for money. And I'm like, okay, come on. You can't be starving if you're going to run a business either. So all of a sudden I realized, wait a second, all that corporate training and that business training and that know-how, and then meeting all these people that were really, heart-centered, soul-driven individuals. And it's like, oh, there's a bridge that needs to happen. What if success and happiness could live in the same town? And so that's really what gets me up in the morning every day, is to say, what if we could live the life we imagine and be successful at it?
Right. So why soul sales? What is, I know that we had that conversation, with the listeners haven't. So, explain what soul sales is.
Sure. So I realized I've always sort of had this different way of looking at things. And I always believe that people should do things that in a way that's natural for them, rather than I don't teach people to sell the way I sell. It's like, don't sell like Lisa Dad. That's for Lisa Dad to do. Sell like Iris, And then several years ago, I met a woman in the Netherlands who had created founded this tool called Soul Language that actually created a report on the core energies, ways of being, fears, strengths that individuals have. And I started integrating that into the work that I do, and realized it just gave me a language to work with people more quickly, because it's archetyped. Okay. So there's various different archetype programs. Most of them are based on behaviors and personalities that change as we grow and mature. Soul language is based on the core energy of who you be. It's, your soul language at birth is the same as your soul language now. And, it doesn't change in that regard. Your expression of it changes a bit, but not the core of it. And so there's these 7 archetypes, and it's pretty deep, but the simplicity of it is there's 7 archetypes. And when I know people's dominant energy and dominant approach to things, then I have a quicker language with which to direct them in the way that they approach sales and the way they approach their business. And I know, and it's not about labeling someone. So say there's a warrior, there's a warrior archetype. It's not like saying you're a warrior, go be a warrior. If your dominant energy is warrior, we start talking about what that means, what it means to you, how it expresses. And I know we're activating someone's truth when they go, oh yeah, that feels so good. You mean I can do that? Oh yeah. That's what comes in some form or another. That's usually we get to the point where it's like, oh, this huge exhale, like, yes, I want to do that, And so that's when I go, okay, well, this is not about the test telling you who you are. It's about you giving a language that allows you to go, yes, that's who I am. That's really the power of it.
Awesome. And so when somebody works with you, how do you, obviously you're not going to give away the secret sauce, but
well, they take an assessment. Yeah, I give them an assessment. So there's 91 questions in the assessment. So really, of course, it should feel like the truth of them. They're the ones that answered it.
Right.
That's the logic of it all. Of course, it should resonate with the report. You basically wrote it by answering the questions the way you did.
Right.
However, we also start to see in the report some things that maybe are confusing and not working. So someone who ends up having like 5 or 6 different approaches, there's 7 different approaches. And if you come up with 5 or 6, it's an indication that you're not really clear. And you can come across very unclear. People don't know which version of you they're getting, right? And so that will come out in the report as well. But they take a report and we go through the different aspects of the report, and we start to, I love to use real life examples, scenarios and stories from their life. And we talk about how they expressed, and we tie that to the soul language so that they can feel it rather than just be told something in concept.
So, and that's so interesting, because I remember that for me personally, so I used to work for a newspaper in town that's now not in town anymore. I mean, it's still here, but it's like this weird thing. It's being published on all these.
You're connected with all these newspapers that go under, Iris. I don't know if that's a good business.
Well, no, I had nothing to do with that. I left. That's an offline conversation, but and my baby is here all with her crunched eye. And now I got distracted. I know what I was going to say. So for me, it was always, they were like, sell this. You need to sell this. This is the product that we're selling this month. We're doing, this. And I won a bunch of sales contests, not because I sold what they wanted me to sell, but because I sold what the client needed.
Yeah.
And I got in trouble for it. They'd be like, you need to go in, and like, there was this one program that was geared towards builders. And we have Purdue Convocations here. So they wanted me to go and sell a full page ad in this publication that was for builders. And I'd be like, no, I mean, that's not where their audience is. I mean, some of their audience is there, but in my head, I'm like, no. And I knew my clients well enough that I'd rather have them, if it's going to be, I probably shouldn't have said the name, but it doesn't matter. If it's going to be like an entertainment thing, then they should probably be in our entertainment issue, right? Not like a builder's thing. So I walked into the director's office, and I went like that. She was like, what was that? I said, something that you have no business being in, but and my customers loved me so much that she was like, well, let me look at it. And, she was literally like, what do you need to hit your number this month?
Yeah.
And I said, that you don't have to worry about that. That I appreciate it, but that's not what you need to do. So they ended up buying like a black and white, full page ad or whatever. And it pissed me off though, because I don't like selling stuff that people don't need.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We come right back to what you said earlier about a big value of yours, which is trust. You want people, you want to trust the people you buy from, and you want the people that you're selling to trust you. And so You walked in years ago and not even realizing it. And you said, boom, this is the thing I'm supposed to sell you, but I know you don't need it. So let's talk about what you do need. Instantaneously, you've earned some trust from that person.
Right.
And so you knew your value was higher on the trust level than on the people pleasing for your boss level. And that already is your soul. And often this is the thing, is you don't need me to tell you what your soul language is. I work with people in it, and definitely people that need that clarification are great. But I always say to people, look, your soul language is always speaking to you. The only question is whether you're listening. Are you paying attention? Are you noticing? Right. Are you following it? And we know when we're not following it. And how do we know? That clenching in our gut
right here.
That I'm going to tell you this thing, it's a contractive energy, and it feels bad. And so this is why I love to say to people, I love helping people find the growth inside their comfort zone. And people always go, wait a second, we're told we have to grow outside of our comfort zone. What I'm always talking about is comfort. To me, we've changed the definition of comfort in that statement of saying it has to be uncomfortable. But what is comfort? Right. Comfort feels good. It feels juicy. Right. Think about your most comfortable sweater. You just want to wrap yourself up in it because it feels so good, right? Like what if you followed the way to do business and the way to sell, things are like, ooh, that feels good. That feels juicy. I like this. I want to spend more time with you. What if that was your feedback, right? But we the fact that you have to be outside your comfort zone, we've kind of almost assumed that people want to be lazy and lethargic and stagnant, but that's not comfortable either. Like I used to say when I left corporate, stepping outside, people say you stepped outside your comfort zone when you left corporate. It's not true. Corporate became so uncomfortable. I didn't like being there anymore. I didn't enjoy it anymore. I mean, there was a time when I loved it. I will say that. That's why you said, do you regret your time in corporate? I don't. I can look back and say there were times where I learned so much there. I worked with amazing people. I had a lot of fun. But I was at the end, I had way more days of being unhappy, miserable, feeling like I couldn't be me, feeling like I had to close my mouth when I really wanted to open it. And all of those were uncomfortable for me. Right. So when I left corporate and people saw uncomfort because they said, wait a second, you left a 6-figure salary, stock options, company car, incentive trips, expense account, opportunities to exceed whatever. They saw that as uncomfortable for me leaving. But the truth is I was actually looking for joy and meaning and purpose, which felt way more comfortable to me. Right. Than staying.
Yeah. And it's funny because, so there's a client that I had who's now one of my dearest friends, and she listens to this podcast all the time. And it's funny because when she listens to it, she knows I'm not bullshitting, number one. But number two, she's like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that. And she used to be one of the clients from the paper. And the first day that we met, she said, and not in these words because she doesn't talk like me, but it's pretty much, don't throw me any bullshit and we'll get along fine. And I said, well, then we're going to get along great because I don't bullshit. And and that was our relationship. And this is 17 years now, and we're like great friends now. It was her, I'm not gonna name you, but you know who you are. It was her 50th birthday yesterday, and we had this like crazy 50th birthday thing for her. It was like amazing. But
this is why you and I got along right away, I think too. It's like, let's just call it like it is. That's our soul language, right? Is that idea of like, we call it like it is. Like I have a very directive approach as well. And that's my soul language, right? But it's not everybody's. And so even like I said, when we go back to the idea that even for you, it's like, no bullshit here, I'm supposed to show you this. That doesn't need to be someone else's approach to have still been successful in that scenario, right? So it's there's different approaches based on the archetypes. One of them, sorry, you were gonna ask me a question. I'll let you ask it first.
No, this is interesting to me because you're right. Just because it's my approach and your approach is not assuming.
Yeah.
So what would the other approach be? I mean, I think that's fascinating. So
I want to give you one of the approaches of the people that honestly don't feel all the time. I won't say honestly. What I hear a lot of times from people with a lot of, let's call it, is helper energy. It's called helper energy. They're really supportive, nurturing energy. It's a very supportive, nurturing energy. And it's often very reserved and calm. The approach of it's very laid back, kind of reserved. And the best, they don't think they can sell because they're not loud and they don't talk with their hands and they don't have stories to share. And they're like, oh, if I could just be outgoing like you, Lisa. And I say, well, don't be outgoing like me. Leverage the nurturing support that you have. Because when you're sitting in front of a salesperson who has that energy, you will feel so taken care of. It's like, I want to buy from them because I know they will take care of me. They will make sure my order gets put in correctly. They will make sure that if I've missed something, that they'll catch it. There's just they're there. Literally, it's that nurturing, supportive energy. And so I always say, lean into that as to how can I support you making a decision. So that's not our energy, but it can be a very effective energy for some people.
But it is kind of mine too, because when I meet with, especially my clients lately, it's been really interesting because the people that have been coming to me, we've been talking on LinkedIn, and I know I've sucked at being in the pod and I'm going to be better about it. So I'm putting this out there, but we talk about being our authentic selves. And we talked about this, I believe that my purpose in life is to be of service, right?
Yes. Okay. And so this isn't your energy.
Well, no, but when I meet with people and they have a problem, I want to solve it. Absolutely. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's not in marketing.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Perfect.
So the weirdest thing.
Yeah. Can I want to use this example to show you a different energy type, because people will often latch onto a word and say, I want to be of service and I want to support people and I want to solve their problems. So the energy underneath it, you got to it's a bit tricky latching onto too many of the words. So let me give you an example. Helper energy is very supportive. It's very nurturing. They're often very behind the scenes. They're the person that's doing all the things that no one else wants to do. They're the ones that notices we need more plates at the picnic and they're running around to get the plates. Okay. Warrior energy is a little bit more what you're describing. It's like, I want to solve their problems. I'm going to do anything to solve that problem. It's like, there's a challenge. I'm going to conquer it. And I'm going through the wall for them. That is warrior energy because they're all about action and it's a fighting energy. And when it's used in the positive light, it's very strong. It's very, all these energies, none of them are better than any others, but warrior energy serves by conquering challenges and finding solutions. Okay. Artist energy, super innovative and creative. They break down problems and they will find solutions no one even ever thought of and ask questions no one ever thought to ask. So everyone's serving and supporting in general, but the energy around it and the way it's done. King energy is very directive and leaders. So they serve, but they serve by directing. They don't serve by serving.
Wow. Interesting.
You feel the energy a little?
Oh, yeah, completely.
So you can say, I think that's me because I love to support people. No. How do you support people?
Right.
Because sage energy is all about expression and communication, and they serve people through their insights and their wisdom.
And it's weird because certain clients I serve with my wisdom. Other clients I serve by, so here's a really weird thing. One of my clients was having an internal issue, and she called me up one morning, and it was just like, what? And she said, hey, I'm having a problem with employee A and employee B. Do you think you could help with that? And I went, yeah. Because I'm a problem solver also, right? So I said, yeah, sure, and all of a sudden now I'm mediating.
Yeah. And
I remember going, well, shit, and I said, I'm not a certified mediator.
Yeah. And
she goes, no, but I know that you have the problem solving skills that we need for that to happen. And I said, okay. And I did it. Yeah. Well, I did it. And the 4 items that weren't being done and weren't being done properly or whatever, or were overdue, I get a call the next week going, hey, so I just want you to know that these 4 things were on my desk this morning. And I went, huh. I said, well, that's cool. And I actually doubted myself. And I was like, so do we have me to thank for that? And she's like, well, I don't know who else we would thank for that, And it made me go, well, shit. So now I can mediate. It's like, it's been so weird because all of these different.
So here's the piece. This is why I use this assessment for people. Okay. So because often, just saying, just be you, be yourself. Of course, who else are you going to be? So that's kind of like an odd thing. Is people say, oh, you teach authenticity. It's not about authenticity. It's about radical self-awareness. And so you've already described, oh, but I think I'm this, I think I'm this, I think I'm this. The value of using the tool and the assessment will drill down specifically what the energy is. And then we start discerning the expression around it so that you can anchor in what's truly your energy. So it can be confusing for other people. And so like, it's not that you're doing everything. It's not about right or wrong, but it's like, even for you, you've described all these things. If we can anchor and land you in your actual energy and you can start to see the differences of them, you can be anchored in that. And people will know exactly what that is. You'll come across that much more effective. So it's not that we're fixing anything that's broken, but it's like, what's your next level? That's what I'm always saying, right? So it's like, you're not a beginner. You've had years of experience. You've had some great sales. You've made a business. Great. But what's your next level? What ceiling are you hitting for you to get to the next level? That can be I'm all about one of my goals. I have the goal of the artist. So I have the energy of the king. My dominant energy is king energy, but I have the goal of the artist, and the artist goal is about differentiation and discernment and rejection. It's kind of like reject this to get to drill to the exact point. So I love with clients, this is the work that gets exciting for me, is that I start to say, I've worked with a client who was showing up in a lot of warrior energy, but her dominant energy was actually king. So once we started to shift into her recognizing that and being in that energy and realizing that she is so much more effective, not because kings are better than warriors, they're not. It's just that kings make better kings and warriors make better warriors.
Right.
So often if you've got like 5 different approaches, that's where it's like, yeah, I can go here, I can go here, I can go here. Okay. However, what's your most effective?
Right.
That for sales, your most effective one is your natural one. It's not say you couldn't play in some of the energies, we do. So you don't have one, you have a matrix. You'll see, we always give you, the report gives you the matrix of the energies that you show up in. But when I do sales with people, if I can anchor them in their true energy, mm-hmm. Not only does it feel better for them and feel easier, it feels really good for the person in front of them. They won't even know why. It's like, oh, it feels true. It feels really true.
Interesting.
So that's the beauty of the tool. That's just the beauty of the tool. Because when I start talking about everyone's trying to guess which they are, it's kind of fun. I think I'm that. I think I'm that. I think I'm that. And it's like, great. And let's land you in the one. And to me, it's useless. People, oh, you have a free quiz. It's useless if you only want me to give you a label.
Right, right.
You're like, I want to be a sage. Okay, then be a sage.
Right.
But if you say, look at Lisa, I have built this great business and we're multiple 6 figures, but we're going to 7 figures and we're just hitting a ceiling and I'm going into these major deals and I want to know how to really land the $200,000 deal instead of the $2,000 deal or whatever that is. I mean, that's a big jump. I say, great. That's where we can really discern where you can really own and step into your energy.
Cool. Okay. So folks, you're hearing this, right? I mean, this is, and I'm taking this in as well. So, there are entrepreneurs that are listening to this there are people listening to this that are thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, and like what you just laid out is huge. And going from corporate to entrepreneurship, what advice, especially from the souls aspect, what advice would you give somebody who's thinking about leaving corporate, or you know what, they just lost their freaking job and they want to start a business? Those
are two very different questions. There's a couple things that I would say. First of all, recognizing the practicalities of it, and so really understanding how urgent your decisions need to be. If you've just lost your job and you don't have a buffer, you don't have a safety net, and you need an income right away, what I would say is you get to be open. So there's going to be a caveat to this, because I love people to like discover what your passions are, discover what really lights you up, discover what problem is out in the world that you would just wish you could solve. Like all of those things can lead you into what you do for a living, because it's hard work owning your own business. It's hard work being an entrepreneur. You better love it.
Yeah.
The caveat is if you don't have any income coming in right now, recognize that the worst pressure you can from I'm going to tell you, sales training is much, much harder when I have people in a desperate state. If you cannot feed yourself or your family, you cannot pay for the roof over your head. Those are number one important things. And so finding a way, even if you can view it as a temporary bridge to put food on the table so that you can build your dream job and bring up that income, do that first, right? And I want to and I always say to people, if you can find a job that also leaves you time and energy to build your side hustle. You actually don't like that term, side hustle. That side aspiration, that dream that you want to build. So that's why it's a trickier question to answer. Just like, who wants to quit their job? I was able to just quit my job because my company was going through a downsizing, and I took advantage of raising my hand and getting a severance package.
Right.
So I had that luxury, and it was also a limitation because I didn't have the urgency to actually build a business that made any money.
Right.
So there's always going to be a pro and con to it, right? And what I learned in my book, I talk about a money chapter, is that regardless of whether people had a lot of money when they left their corporate job or had none, really didn't determine if they were successful. All it did was shift their choices and their path. So, some people that had a lot of money wasted a lot of that money, wasted a lot of time,
Right.
Haphazardly spent. Some of those people that were like, I got to make money today or I can't feed my family, were able to actually put things into action because they were more willing to be in the mix of it, to wake up every day with intention, right? So let's just say that money it feels like it's a limitation or a benefit. At the end of the day, it actually isn't in many ways. You got to feed yourself first, though.
Right.
So take care of your basic needs. And one of the things that I always say too is that recognize what your needs are, though, right? Like one of the things that I got rid of when I left corporate was my cable TV. And I realized, not because I wanted to deprive myself of TV, but I realized I never watched it. It was full of commercials. It was full of channels I never took advantage of. I wasted hours of my time that I never got back. And so I was like, I don't really need this and I don't really want it. And so the second I got rid of my $100 TV bill, that's $100 less that I needed to earn that month.
Right.
And I was like, oh my goodness, that's, that old saying my grandmother used to say, a penny saved is a penny earned. And I'm like, what does she mean? I didn't get it until I was like 39. I left my job 39 and I was like, oh, that's what grandma meant.
That's what that means.
$100. I don't need to make $100, right? So, and when you do that math, that exercise is actually in my book for anybody that wants to go through it. Need, want, and what's the last one I had? There was need, want, and neither. Need, want, and neither. Do I need this? Do I want it? Or do I neither need it or want it? And all of a sudden you can look at all your expenses. And so you come out of corporate, I came out of corporate and I had a pretty fat buffer, but I also was spending money on all sorts of stuff I didn't need to spend money on.
Right. And that's what Fabienne said. She was the episode from yesterday. And, she said in the beginning, she bought all the courses. She was like, I was paying for courses that I forgot that I even bought, because I wanted to try everything until I realized that nothing happened. And I bought 2 courses, and within a month, I was like, no, this isn't what I need. And the fact that I was able to recognize that is pretty big, because I have like ADD big time. So the fact that I was able to keep my eye on that prize, that, okay, I'm doing this and I'm spending this much, because I ended up, Judith Peft was one of my guests, and she's a financial person. And she said one of the things that she does with people is, they've been paying for subscriptions that they completely forgot about. And I think in last November, or whenever it was, I don't know, months ago, I got a bill for something, and I'm like, what? So I went to my PayPal and I saw I've been paying.
Oh yeah, and you can close the
5 years, and I just went click, click.
That's the best place to go, by the way, for everybody. There's
absolutely.
You just go into your PayPal and into your Google accounts and your Apple Pay and just decline everything. But
go into the subscriptions and end them all. And
you're also bringing up a really big tip I want to give out to the new entrepreneurs out there, regardless of you just lost your job or whatever you've done, is invest according to where you're at. So I will say to people right now, when you work in either my, intimate group programs or my one-on-one programs, they cost, there's an investment to them. And I will not let people buy into them that cannot recoup the cost in that time or very shortly after. Mm-hmm. And so if you're just starting out, you don't even know what you're selling, and somebody's trying to sell you a $10,000 package, it's like, no, And if you're only selling something that's worth $100, don't buy a $10,000 package right now. There's so much available free. There's books that are available for $7.99, and so you got to invest in your business in a reasonable way. And so, and make sure that when you're also considering to invest, that the person that you're investing with is of that mentality, not just, if you can't afford to pay me, you can't afford not to buy my program. There's a lot of that.
I hate that. And I don't use the word hate often. That makes me nuts.
Yeah, it does too. So I just want to say to people out there, it's like, just invest appropriately. It doesn't mean you don't need to invest in your business. You absolutely do. It's just, don't do it at a risk of losing your house,
Right. No,
which is crazy. It's too much pressure already to succeed as an entrepreneur, to start off in that vein. I can't train people in sales well if they're in a desperate, can't feed myself mentality. Soul sales is very hard to do.
Oh, because how did they connect? Because they're so
energy comes out.
Things.
No matter what they say, the energy will come across needy, and that is a really hard thing to overcome.
Yeah, and you can't do that. So for the seasoned entrepreneur, what obstacles have you had to overcome? Because we're in the Dames, and there was a really interesting post today that I saw, that I think Kat put out, but it was somebody put it out about that, I guess, be kind because people are going through stuff, and whatever, which I'm going through. I think a few of us are going through some crazy shit right now, but what advice could you give, or what obstacles have you had to overcome that, and I don't know if this would apply because of how you came to becoming an entrepreneur, but it might, because
absolutely. First of all,
all in our businesses have challenges, right? So
I would say if you own a business and you haven't had some sort of failure, then you really don't own the business.
Thank you.
Entrepreneur if you haven't failed at something. If you haven't bought a million URL addresses that you never used, if you haven't printed 50 different business cards that you threw away because they weren't the right thing, then you're not really a true entrepreneur.
So really fast, last year I had my other business, and Kofi, we used the back of my business card as the outro.
Yeah.
I did, I don't know, 30 something videos, and I never, really looked at the end, and I look at the end and there was a typo in it. And I looked at him and I was like, holy shit, you need to take that down. He's like, why? I'm like, because it says, the R is missing out of the name, and nobody caught it.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody caught it. So, but
there's always little fun ones like that I would say that, I think the biggest thing for me, this is the biggest thing that for me, when I left corporate, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew what I didn't want to do. And so I literally came out trying to figure that out and wanting to figure that out. And what I would say took me a long time is to allow it to find me. It found me. I did not choose to go back into sales. In fact, I was running from sales and marketing as fast as I could because I was just done with it. And then I came into the online space, and I really don't like the way it's done in the online space for the most part. There are some really great people out there, and there's some real junk out there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people selling themselves as business coaches that have never really been in business. They had one tactic land, and they're teaching everybody and their brother that that's the answer. What my mistake was I very quickly felt like I needed all these courses and these knowledge. I spent a ton of money on courses and knowledge and how to do this and how to do that, which are actually things that would have been valuable to have invested in after I really understood what it is I wanted to do. Because most of these courses don't actually help you figure that out. They tell you, you don't even have to have an idea. You don't have to have a product. You don't have to have a business. Just come in. You don't have to have a list. Don't worry. You can make 7 figures in 7 days. And, but I don't think a lot of them really stop to really appreciate. And it's what I love doing with people too, is the theme or the thread of all the things that you've been trained on, all the experiences you've had have probably led you up to this. Like for me, it makes sense that I help people with sales. I realize I've been selling for over 30 years. Even I was at a waitressing job in university that they actually trained us in sales on the weekends. I don't know any other waitressing, any restaurant that did this, but the owner manager of the place put us in sales training so that we would sell better to our, it was teaching us how to upsell different things. And it's like, oh, that burger would be really good with some bacon and some cheese and some gravy for the fries kind of thing. All of a sudden the bill's $1 more, which means you're going to get a bigger tip and all the things.
Right.
And so I can think about so many things that I was involved in sales, for the 30 years, when I was really young. And of course, I get to a point in my life where people are like, Lisa, just teach us how to do sales. It's like, okay, yeah, come back. And in between, I did a bunch of other things. And so that means now, I was training on emotional intelligence, social emotional learning with a nonprofit. Well, guess what? That impacts the way I do sales, right? I bring emotional intelligence into the way I do sales. So everyone, if you start to think of your themes and all of the things together, there'll be a reason. I have a friend who is, she's a YouTube influencer, and she does apartment designs on low budgets and in apartments where you're not allowed to make major changes. But she was an engineer at one point. So of course, the way she does things, she's got an engineer's mind to her decorating style, right? So if we can appreciate all those things, you can focus on really what your gifts are, and then pay for the courses that teach you how to put a business around it. But doing all that, the business part first, then it's like, great, I know how to do Facebook ads, but I don't know what I'm advertising. Right. I know how to sell a high ticket offer, but I don't know what the offer would be. There's all these things, right? That, I think they need to come first of what do you really want to do for people?
Yeah. That's good advice. And it's funny because you said, with the upselling thing, every company that I've ever been with other than my own was always about upselling. And I get it, you want to get somebody to the next level and, whatever, but I just kind of feel like it's not a bad thing, because that's how we have our customer coming back because we're doing the right thing and the customer is coming back. And Skylar's licking my arm. That's why I'm kind of a little like
we're getting some fur baby love.
She's being whiny. Yeah, well, she wants to go out and she can't fit through the door, but she did before when she was chasing Piper. But anyway, so but I always felt like with the paper, right? When they buy this, then sell them this, and it's like, how many times are you going to tap the same well? Yeah. But I kind of feel like those are, that's how we build our businesses with our repeat customers, right?
Yeah, but energetically, here's the shift again. So you can take the same thing. I remember discernments. I'm all about discernments. You take the same things to say, for you, right? Your customers trust that you're going to match what they really want with what you have that would fit that need and that desire. And so it's an invitation for people. Like, you don't want to not make if it's available, right? Because it's actually even true, even in the restaurant. Instead of like making everybody have gravy with their fries, I don't even like gravy with my fries. But some people would be really upset they didn't even know that was an option. So it's like more of an invitation, right? And if you do it from an invitation versus I need to upsell you so that I make more money. So if the energy around it, again, is that attachment to, I got to sell you something to make the bill higher. You want bacon? Oh, you don't want bacon? How about cheese? You don't want cheese? How about I give you, I don't know, a steak instead of a burger? There's those people that they just don't stop, or that guy that comes back every week, even though I said 3 months. What calendar are you operating on? I think that's what would have been my question to him. I'm like, I'm not sure what calendar, but we use the Gregorian calendar here.
There was a lot of diatribe in between that I kind of left out because it was
right. But so the point there is still coming back to the idea that if you are in that service minded and you're saying, look, I'm going to trust that when I anchor in who I am and what I'm about and my values, and I've got someone sitting in front of me and I'm curious about it, what it is that they want, what their aspirations are, I know that is valuable for my business to sell them more. Okay. I still know that there's nothing wrong with that. And when I pair that with just staying open to what else do I have to offer this person that would actually serve them in a big way? Mm-hmm. And is there an invitation for that? Or is there maybe even to say, you know what, I've got this other project or program that I think would be really good for you, but not yet. So my suggestion is you'd start here. And then maybe in 6 months, this one would be perfect for you. But we can talk about that then, kind of thing. Or, what would really complement you right now would be to do these two things together because there's a synergy around them. And I do suggest, even though it's bigger investment, there's a value in doing them together. But see, I'm still thinking about not just not thinking about myself. It is good for my business to have sales, and we need people out there having successful businesses. Otherwise, how can they make an impact on the world? So it's not about losing that completely. It's just about making sure that's integrated in with the right intention and desire.
Right. And that's what I do when I say that I meet them where they are. It's like, you're here now, and so let's do this, and then it'll help you get to this next level, which is where you need to be, but you're not there now. You're not, so let's help you get there. And that's, I guess, where the service piece comes from for me, right? Because it's like,
so that's a great sales strategy, because you do that so intentionally and with great intention. If I'm coaching someone with you, I would say always then, if you have a product that it can be phased like that, the strategy in that is to show them the phases. So it's not right. And right from the get-go that you offer that. And some of them might say, no, let's just do the whole thing now. I know I'm going to want to. So the strategy isn't always just say, we'll talk about that later necessarily. It could literally be, look, I'm actually suggesting this for you, but let's just put this piece over here and talk about phase one. I want you to get amazing results over here. And then this will be a no-brainer. Like that's, again, this is my approach, not yours maybe, but that's what I would say. Cause then it's just like, but I'm putting this in front of you. I want you to know that I'm thinking about it. I want you to know that it's available. And I also want you to know that I'm not pushing you to do it right now, because it doesn't make sense. So all of a sudden there's that trust, right?
I like that. And I kind of do that. I don't know if I phrase it exactly like that, but it's the same gist. I think that
it's about the intention. It's not about the approach. Your words, of course, are going to be different than mine. But we're talking really about the energy of it, right? It's like, okay, I am here to serve you, and I'm here to run a successful business.
Right. And they know, and the funny thing is, they know that. They're like, well, Iris, you need to make money too. And I'm like, I'm making money. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And not to come off like, well, I'm making a lot of money on you, but it's that I'm taking care of myself. Don't worry about it. I'm also taking care of you. Yeah. And they know that. So it kind of, translates to that. And then, my customers are loyal. So I'm very, lucky in that way and grateful. And we're at an hour and 7 minutes already. See how fast this goes? Is that crazy? I mean, we could just talk about this like all day long. And I want to. For first off, how does somebody work with you?
How does someone work with me? How do they get a hold of me, you mean?
How do they get hold of you? How do they work with you? What's your process?
Yeah, perfect.
For them?
I see you've
got
focus on you. My LinkedIn's on the ticker, so that's great. And emailing me directly is great. I always have a conversation with someone first to understand where they're at, to see if they're even a fit for what I do. Because like you, I want to make sure that there's an alignment. I'm all about the alignment of it. And so I do work with people individually, and I also have intimate group experiences, because for me, sales is an experience. It's not about me teaching you a whole bunch of things. It's not about a lot of content. My whole process is to, I do people's soul language first, and I get their soul sales archetype. And then it's about, how do we leverage what you already have, who you already are, and how do we make it even better? So it's not about changing who you are. It's about mastering, tweaking, discerning. And so it really depends on where people are in their level of business success, and whether or not they need training for their entire team versus an individual. Because when you start to look at the soul language of your team members, even if they're not directly a salesperson, if they're customer facing, they can be a part of your sales process.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you want, like, I even like to say that, even your VA can be a part of your sales process without them technically selling. But every interaction they have with your client, are they bringing their own soul language in? Maybe they're a helper, that helper energy we talked about, and they're the one that makes the person felt taken care of.
Right.
And they are probably the one that's going to take care of them more than even you in some instances, right? Because it might be the person that is filling in dotting all the I's and crossing the T's, right? And so are you allowing that energy, that skill set, that strength, that propensity of that person to shine through as part of it? Are you letting them do their part so you can do yours, right? So that's a whole nother avenue that I work with people on as well.
Yes, a whole nother layer. I love that. I love everything you do. I think that it's so valuable. Really. So for everybody, who's listening out there, really, I really think this is the way to do sales, because when I think about it, if you think about it in a trained monkey way, and I really, I mean, look, I've gone through sales training that I walked out of, because the guy they flew the guy in from Camden, New Jersey, and he's up in the front of the room and he has all this energy and he's doing this and he's saying, this is what you do when you get up there, and this is it, and hey, here's a deck of cards, pick a card. Okay, I'm picking a card. Great. Put it down there. Great. Okay. There, shuffle the deck. Okay, great. Pick that pile. Okay, I picked that pile. And then at the end of the thing, he's like, here's your card. And I was like, okay. He said, because I guided you all, the whole, like I guided you the whole step. And I was like,
I manipulated you.
Yeah. Right. You just spent 5 minutes manipulating me, and that's not how I'm going to do sales. So I walked out of the sales meeting. I was like, thank you for your time. No. But I love what you do, because it really is going from within you and within your soul and with who you are. And that's where the authenticity piece comes in. Right. And,
yeah. And we go to the step. I mean, really, this is about your next level for anybody out there, is like, to me, is that, what is that next level, and where the radical self-awareness. So like people will already know, I said your soul language has already been speaking to you.
Right.
And if you really want to work with your soul language to take you to the next level, that's where we go a little bit deeper into it. That'd be the reason to do it. Really. It's like, I'm ready for my next level. I'm ready to master something.
Yep.
That's really the point of the way that I do sales. And for those experts out there, usually I work with people that have been experts in what they do for somebody else, and now they do it as their own business.
Mm-hmm.
So that means they're an expert in what they do. It doesn't mean they're an expert salesperson. It's just they are a business owner now, so they need to sell.
Right.
So I love to teach non-sales people how to sell.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then, because we are at an hour and 11 now, I am going to ask you the last question that I ask everybody.
Okay.
And I would love to have you on again and explore this some more, because I feel, and plus I want to talk to you offline anyway, but the last question I always ask everybody is, what lights your fire? Like what lights you up? What gets you, and it could be personal, professional, it could be whatever it is, but what lights Lisa up?
Oh gosh. Well, my dog. That's the personal side, my dog. Yeah, no. And being outside in nature with my dog. That's what I loved about my last dog, Leo, is it got me outside being in nature. So I love being active outside in nature. That's the personal side of it. What lights me up business-wise is what I mentioned a little bit earlier. And today I was just doing a training today, and someone said, Lisa, I was kind of tired coming into this training, and now I'm just buzzing. I just feel so good. This just feels so right. It feels so aligned. That's when I know we're really talking someone's soul language.
Mm-hmm.
I get that feedback of like, ooh, this feels good.
That is awesome.
That's what lights me up. I'm like, awesome, great. Cause it's not really about anything it's not really about me. It's really about, has it activated in you that feeling of like, yeah,
Well, I think that's very cool. And, so, everybody listening, Soul Sales, do we have the book on there, Kof, or no? I guess we're not scrolling that. What's the
easiest way to find the book is to type my name into Amazon. There's not a lot of dads in the world.
Okay, there you go. And that's
not a lot of D, not a lot of double D dads anyway.
There you go. DA Lisa Dad. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day today. I know we tried this, a couple of times, and you're being up.
The power went out. Yep. Today the thunder stopped for you, Iris. So it's good. It was storming today, but apparently the powers that be decided that we were meant to have a conversation.
This was meant to be.
The whole time. So it's all good.
Well, good. And I hope your pup is doing okay, because mine is like losing her mind over here. And I have the other one in the crate screaming, but no one can hear that. Thank you for taking the time. And I look forward to speaking to you again, and I'll be shooting you messages and stuff. So, so thank you. And for all of you who are listening and tuning in on podcasts, or actually sitting down and watching, the hour plus long video, thank you so much. I appreciate you. It's because of you that I get to have fun doing this, because this is such a fun passion project for me. And so thank you for letting me do it. And on that note, I'm going to invite you guys, um, until next time, to go out and find what lights your fire. See you soon. Bye.